Nathan, you ready? All right. We're going to go ahead and get started tonight. First order, call to order. For those in the gallery out here, if you plan on addressing the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding an agenda item, please submit a request to speak form before the meeting begins. If you haven't done so, please pick one up over the table. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes, must limit their comments to the subject indicated on the form, and should address the Planning and Zoning Commission as a whole rather than individual members or staff. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, Planning and Zoning Commission reserves the right to adjourn to executive or closed session anytime during the meeting to seek legal advice from the city attorney or on any item posted on the agenda. Get a roll call, please.
Andrew Mikowski.
Here.
Colby Cowan.
Here.
Perry Clemente. David Dickinson Cuniff. You have a quorum.
All right, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. All right. We're going to roll right into our regular session tonight. Items for an individual consideration. The Planning and Zoning Board, of course, we're in our regular meeting for 6 p.m. right here in the City Council chambers at 405 Municipal Drive in Kennedale, Texas. First item on a regular session is going to be approve the minutes from the December 21st, 2023 regular meeting.
I motion we approve. I'll second that.
All right, well, that was easy enough, guys. We approve the motion, unanimous, ma'am.
All in favor?
Huh?
All in favor?
All in favor? All right. We're going to start the public hearings. This is going to be a little bit of a deviation that we normally use. First of all, we're going to go for every case. We're going to open it up to hear discussions from any members that would like to speak. We're just going to receive information, have you be able to speak out, and then we'll bring our staff up. Discuss. So the first one is P&Z case 2401 to conduct a public hearing and consider a proposed zoning change from agriculture or AG to TH Townhome District for the approximately 4.27 acres being tract 3F as in Frank, 3F1 of the Renfro Jesse B Survey abstract number 1260 and tract 3C as in Charlie 1HS abstract 1285 located at 516 Crestview Drive, City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas. This time I'd like to open the floor for anybody who'd like to speak on that particular case.
If you plan to speak, will you stand and raise your right hand? Any testimony that you prove or provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Say you affirm or swear to that. Okay, thank you. Okay. Are there any speakers for this first case? Sir, if you'll state your name and your address, please, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Walter Nelson, 1812 Carla Avenue, Arlington, Texas. I'm the agent for the owners of the property. Going through the site plan. Oops. I said my name is Walter Nelson, 1812 Carla Avenue, Arlington, Texas. I am the agent for the owners, the one who drew the site plan. The purpose of the development, the owners of the property have been trying for years to develop a place where they can move their family and their extended family and have homes for all of the people that are in their extended family. They've been on the property since 2017. They got set back by COVID. They're now coming forward. Basically, they're going to occupy about 8 of the units in this development. They are here if you've got questions for them. We have met with staff, and I really appreciate the efforts of staff on this project because they've helped us get to where we are right now. But basically, I'm just going to answer questions if you've got them, because you've pretty much got everything that we intend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else speaking on PZ case 2401? If you'll state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Michael Buchanan. I live at 101 Hilltop Drive here in Kennedale, and I'm here representing Donna Buchanan, the property owner. Thank you for y'all's time this afternoon. Just a couple things concern me about the development. First is the density of the development. We're talking roughly tripling the density of residents compared to the adjoining neighborhood right nearby, which of course is going to increase not just the traffic, but noise and everything else that comes along with neighborhoods. And also with the plan, they've provided no kind of buffer between that new development and the adjoining neighborhood to help mitigate any of those problems. Secondly, and this is probably my primary concern, is just the increased traffic that's going to take place here on Crestview Drive. As you know, Crestview is probably about the narrowest street we have in Kennedale. And it's certainly a fairly well deteriorated street there in Kennedale. And of course, that increased traffic is just going to make that street deteriorate even faster. But one of my other concerns that I have is if we're going to be building a neighborhood that directly empties out on the Crestview, then you would assume there's probably going to be families moving to those neighborhood with children. And that street is already unsafe, hardly to drive on, much less having people walk on or children walking back and forth between that new neighborhood and the adjoining elementary school and primary schools. So I'm open to answering questions if you have any, but that's the end of my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Ms. Joplin.
Jan Joplin, 204 Hilltop Drive. I am the mayor, but tonight I'm just here as a citizen. I live, my property doesn't directly back up to it, but right next door would directly back up to it. My neighbor, Marcia Knox, who's 2 doors down from me, is sick tonight. She couldn't be here, but I'll speak for her too. And then my neighbor, since the meeting was moved from last month to this month, directly next door, they couldn't come tonight, but I'll speak for them as well. I agree completely with you on the traffic issues. Crestview is very, very narrow, and we already have built a 3-story apartments right behind me. And you saw that since there wasn't an infrastructure study done there and a traffic study done there before it was built, you see the problems of the traffic that's already on Sublet. So we don't need that on Crestview. And also I would agree that with families, there would need to be at least some kind of a walkability. I walk every day and I walk on Crestview every day and see the issues there. So the traffic's a big issue. And the other thing I'd like for you to consider is that we're in the process right now of updating our comprehensive plan. As a matter of fact, they'll be meeting on the 30th of this month. And there was a survey done with some key takeaways from our citizens. And one of the key takeaways is a desire for a variety of single-family housing options. Most of the citizens that I talk to are not in favor of high density. They're in favor of Kennedale being more of a low density, which means the single housing options. So I would just ask that you guys think just very carefully about this. And before I close, I'd like to thank all of you for serving.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I don't know whose water this is. That's yours? Oh, okay. I'll leave it there for you then.
Is there any further speakers on this case? All right, staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good to be with you again tonight. So I'd like to walk you through the staff report that you have before you. And then I'll get into the status of the property surrounding adjacent neighborhoods speak to some of the concerns that have been raised tonight, provide some additional context, and get into recommendations. So the current property, it's 4.27 acres, contains an existing one-story home that's currently vacant. So they've owned it for some time. It was used as a rental, and it's just sat vacant for some time. So the property is serviced. We have utilities out in front of that existing structure there on Crestview Drive. It's relatively flat. However, as it slopes towards the creek, it does have a downward slope to the east. And the landowner, so as we heard tonight, the landowner is proposing to build small-scale townhome development at this location. And unlike other types of development, this development is what we call owner-occupied development. So he's going to be on site, family's going to be on site. And so this is sort of kind of homegrown type development. Folks that live in our town, live in our community, and your community, and are hoping to invest further into it. So they planned on buying a portion of the units that will be on site so they can house their family members. The proposed density is compliant with the limits that City Council set last spring. So if you recall last spring, we amended the UDC and we put in spatial requirements for townhomes, and council considered what the density conversation was going to be moving forward. And they established that density for both multifamily, which this is not, and townhomes at 8 units an acre. And so on a density aspect, this proposal is actually compliant with the limits that council set last year. At 4.27 acres, they can get about 34 units. And then this particular development is actually under that. So it's actually under the limit as far as density. The east portion of the property will serve as site detention and open green space. So this is that sloped area towards the back. I've talked to some neighbors that have called up here, and when I mentioned that, so any development will have to detain drainage and flow at pre-development levels. So the way that the water runs today is the limit, or that speed. It can't, if by the numbers it increases, they have to detain on site. And so in the back, that's what they're proposing, to put a detention pond and some open green space. This townhome community will be HOA maintained. And so you were provided with a project narrative, a concept plan, and sample elevations for your review. I'd like to get into land use compatibility. But prior to that, let me get into kind of what we have in that particular area. So again, this property is zoned AG agriculture, and it's surrounded by adjacent parcels that are zoned AG as well. And these AG agricultural zone property contains single-family residences. So just north, it's adjacent, is the fire station, and we have the water tower that's sitting there. And as we know, that the fire station will be remodeled. One of the things I've talked to the fire chief and their design team is walkability in an existing neighborhood. And so as that site develops adjacent to this sidewalk, to kind of get people off of Crestview where they're currently walking and get them on a protected path, right, for a portion of it. And then as you continue down Crestview, the goal or the hope is that we can install further sidewalks. So at this particular location and the one just north of it where the fire station would be, we're going to see some sidewalks there in an existing neighborhood that currently doesn't have sidewalks. Gets the kids off the street, and again, right across the street we have the football field for the Delaney, the elementary school there. And so if kids do decide to move into the townhome in that community, or just like existing neighborhood, they got a safe place to walk right across the street. And it's strategically located for that. I would think that'd probably be an attractive incentive when it comes to selling the properties as well, that it's so close to a school district or a school. So again, we have single family further north in the Kennedale addition. Those properties are zoned R3. And then to the west, we have, again, like I mentioned, the KISD, their administration building, and then we have the football field and the likes. Further south, we have some commercial property. I'm sure folks have probably seen the salon or the hair salon. I normally shave my head, so I don't go to a barber too often.
I'm with you.
But, okay, so that's kind of just setting the stage as far as what we have in that existing area. So land use compatibility, let's discuss that. I'd like to do that. So the proposed land use is what we define, or what the city has defined in the Unified Development Code as single-family attached. So in our development code, you won't read townhomes. You'll see a townhome district, and we'll have references to townhomes. But the way we define those is single-family attached. And these are commonly known as townhomes. So the request to rezone the subject property to a townhome district, again, would allow for 32 townhomes. And looking at our land use compatibility with what is around in the existing neighborhood, that residential use is compatible with the surrounding uses. Following that, the initial look at how this proposal, is it compatible with what we have there? We then moved into what the adopted plans say. And so I want to walk you through the comprehensive plan that we have adopted. And as we heard tonight, that plan is in the process of also being updated. But when we do our review, we have to base it on what's already on the books, what's adopted. So our current comp plan and our future land use plan, they envision this part of town to be developed as neighborhoods, right? So within that neighborhood definition, we have a variety of residential offerings, right? So single family, attached single family, right? So there's that term again, townhomes, right? Townhouses or row houses, context sensitive small scale multifamily, as well as cluster development. So when you look at the future land use plan and the comprehensive plan, when it speaks about neighborhoods, this part of town, we want to keep it a neighborhood. So all the land uses have got to be compatible. What does that mean? It goes on to list various types of residential offerings there. So when a rezone comes to my office, we have to look at the future land use plan. Is it consistent with that comp plan? Is it consistent with the future land use plan? And staff, our determination that the rezone request is consistent with our comprehensive plan and our future land use plan. Furthermore, in the comprehensive plan, it lays out a set of principles. I want to get into those, what those principles are. Principle number 2, economic prosperity. And then in the staff report, I've included excerpts from our adopted comprehensive plan. And as part of to promote economic prosperity, we want to promote housing. Promote access to housing is what it says specifically. And it actually quotes the 1949 Housing Act, right? I wasn't around in 1949, so I'm reading this in a book, right? But as promised, a decent home for every American family. I've heard that before. This necessitates providing housing options for people of varying financial means and residential preferences. Create another part of that within economic prosperity. It says, create a stable and equitable tax base. And it talks about diversifying the mix of land uses across the city to reduce the residential tax burden, right? So keeping sales tax dollars by promoting opportunities to shop in Kennedale, provide support to local businesses and artists, right? So by providing a mix of housing options, such as the one proposed at this location, what we're saying is that the land uses are further diversified in Kennedale. I also want to note that this development on Crestview is within walking distance of Kennedale Town Center, right? And so this can be an incentive to attract new businesses to the center of town. Again, by promoting opportunities to shop in Kennedale, this would be a residential offering, again, with walkability and close access to town center. The comprehensive plan also has spends quite a bit of time on describing or discussing planning concepts. And one of those concepts is what's referred to as transect planning, okay? So what this is that even though our comp plan right now is currently being updated as we're going through that process, the concept of transect planning will play a role in determining what type of development is compatible with existing land uses. So another way to look at this concept is when we look at how we plan a city, we look at the intensity of uses. Are they compatible with each other? We look at the density of uses. Are they compatible with each other? And we look at the scale in which are we going to go high density, low density, high density, low density, or are we going to have a gradual, what I call a sort of like a release of intensities. And so within town centers, downtowns, things like that, which we have here, you'll see that most codes in most cities, even small cities, they're looking at their downtown area as a focal point, and they start to diversify the land uses around that particular focal point. And as you extend outward to the city, you start having buffer areas, less intense uses. Eventually you get to the outskirts where you have single family and some AG rural, kind of similar to what we have here in Kennedale. And so to further kind of illustrate this idea of transect planning, I've in the staff report, I want to direct your attention to figure A. And it's applied to the center of town. So figure A and figure B. Figure A in your staff report, it kind of illustrates how that planning concept plays out. So as you get closer to town, things get closer, things get more dense, more diversified, but as you go further out, you get a little bit more elbow room. When we look at an aerial of town center, when we look at 287, when we look at KISD, what you have there, we have a busy commercial corridor off 287. There's no doubt about that, right? It's very, very busy, but it's buffered by town center, by this municipal complex on this side of the parkway. While on the other side, it's also buffered by the KISD building and then I believe it's an alternative school, and then the elementary school. So that kind of further insulate existing residential. And then if you go further out, along Courier Edwards, particularly on this side of town, you got a mix of land uses there. We do have existing multifamily, existing townhomes. We have new duplexes going in, so you get a little bit more of a mix. This, what I call is a transition zone or a buffer area to further insulate the existing single family. So on this side of the parkway, we have those kind of mix of uses, but as we go further out, it's less, right? So then we get into single family, and then we get into this the rural AG property, which is west of town center, right? So that's where you get into like Linda, New Hope, where you still get more of that rural feel. Well, if we jump across the street, we have a similar concept kind of playing out. We have the busy corridor, the parkway. We have the KISD kind of buffering the existing neighborhood over there by Mistletoe, where you've got single family. And as we go in between Kennedale, Sublet, and Crestview, we do have the what they call the urban village, the Hammock Creek, that multifamily area that is adjacent or real close to the parkway. In essence, in an aerial, that type of development insulates the noise and the intensity from the existing single family that we have here. So as we go up Crestview, we have some vacant property there off the parkway that is zoned commercial. We have that barber shop, right, that's zoned commercial. Then we have some existing land uses. And on this exhibit, I've noted that these are AG properties, so they're serving as a buffer on them. The particular property at 516 Crestview with the townhome proposal would also serve as a buffer for the existing single family that is there. So again, I'm just hoping to illustrate that as you go from a busy street or a busy parkway like 287, and as you go into the neighborhood, those intensities of uses, the densities start to relax, and eventually you get into single family. So again, that's a long way of saying, hey, what this comp plan concept is calling for, we see that kind of playing out here in town center. So I want to then move on to, we looked at our future land use plan, comp plan. I then want to move on to our community survey that we heard referenced tonight. and I want to highlight some areas there. So this past October, as we're preparing for the comp plan, or as we're updating the comp plan, we had a community survey that went out and we received feedback from that. So here are the key takeaways. One of them, as noted tonight, is a desire to see a variety of single-family housing options. So Figure C is actually from the Dunaway survey, and that was in the survey, a variety of single-family housing options. Figure D, right, identifies where townhomes are specifically mentioned in the grand scheme of things on all those housing options, right? Now, what I submit to you tonight is that townhomes, you know, I'm a building code guy, right? So townhomes are single-family units that are attached by a firewall. And as we discussed, the way we define those tonight are single-family attached. When a building or a structure has a firewall separating two units, that individual unit is considered its own independent unit. So if I look at this from a building code perspective, it's on the code as a single-family unit. So that's what I'm saying here tonight. So when a building is separated by a firewall, each side of the building is reviewed as a single building, even though there may be a row or a bank of units that are attached, okay? So as townhomes are defined by our UDC as single-family attached, what I'm saying is that a case can be made that these may be considered an option for single-family housing needs, and that's all I'm saying here tonight, right? So one caveat, though, exists is that in the residential code, the new codes that have come out, they've all required that residential homes have to be sprinkled, right, with an automatic sprinkler system. The state removed that requirement for 1- and 2-family dwellings, but the requirement still exists for townhomes, right, being single-family in that sense. But so this development would still require a sprinkler system. But lastly, the community survey, and this is the one that I want you to focus on, is Figure E, where it says that one of the top 3 focus areas of the comp plan was to provide more desired housing, residential housing in the center of the city. So the community survey noted a desire to see more residential options, in town center, or close to town center. So again, the proposed project would provide additional residential housing in the center of town, and again, it's within walking distance of town center. So if this project is developed, like I mentioned before, sidewalks will be installed, extending sidewalks provided to the new fire station remodel. And this section of town currently doesn't have that. When we talk about development, and the developer, the builder, or in this case, someone that lives here in town, owns property in town, they're wanting to further invest, they will be installing this infrastructure. They will be installing new water, sewer lines to support this project. And that's something that is not at a cost to the city, right? It's at their cost. So following that, a recommendation, so I'll conclude with that, is that the request to rezone to a townhome district is compatible with existing land uses. It's consistent with our current comprehensive plan and our future land use plan. And it is consistent with the recent survey that we had. So with that, we recommend approval for this project, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has tonight.
Okay, Crestview Road proper here, excuse me. That is a very, very narrow road. Already with some concerns as far as a actually steep drop off there that is unabated. My concern on that one is increased traffic at that point, and then of course combining with the traffic controls right there at Kennedale Parkway. Is there any future studies to be done on that as far as how we can ensure that road remains safe, especially in proximity to that school? Because I'm concerned about, especially that drop off. Like I said, there's about an 8-foot no safety net, if you will, drop off right off the road.
About across the street by the KISD building?
Right. So again, we're talking about walkability at this point. So if we're going to actually have an area there that's going to increase, especially with children. What's the plans for the city to look at that and keep that area safe for that, that particular, like I said, traffic control, that particular area right there?
Well, and that particular area is outside the project limits here. In
Right.
fact, sidewalks would be installed on their side, and that's what I would recommend, that where sidewalks go, if they were to go on any side, would be on the side that they're located because of that drop-off. There wouldn't be a way to install one there. And so, again, this project will have sidewalks there. It'll tie into what the fire department will be doing there on the corner. And then the goal is to extend that sidewalk further down Crestview at some point, right? The road itself, Crestview, is in our transportation plan to remain as just a residential street. As we go through the comp plan update, transportation, we have that open house coming up here in a couple of days. We want to hear from the community because that transportation plan may change, right? It may show that Crestview, because it's so narrow, needs to be expanded. But what that also entails is that the city then has to acquire additional right-of-way to widen the road, right, at some point. And so the city has to have a plan in place to show that we need the additional right-of-way. So again, all that is being in review right now or being discussed with the community. And following their input, we'll look to see what Crestview will shape up to be like. But as far as the walkability concerns, this project, in our view, will improve walkability in the area. It's in the grand scheme of things, when you consider all types of development and the developments that I've seen, particularly townhome developments, this is a very, very relatively small townhome development. So I don't anticipate traffic concerns. I understand them and I empathize with them. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. But with this low density that is compliant with the city standards, that going in there, I'm not sure that how traffic will be worsened, that we can't mitigate following our plans that we have currently in the works.
Okay, next question is going to be the infrastructure itself when we're talking about services, especially sewage lines. We already know we're taxed up almost max on that. What are we looking at for an impact on this? And the other thing is that area right now, and I'm not sure which branch it would actually run off of, but there is a bit of an instability when it comes to electrical services as well. It does drop quite a bit through there. So is there a study going to be put on there to see if that's going to tax? I mean, you're adding 32. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what that does. I'm not an engineer. But I just want to bring that to the attention of the commissioners and yourself. Not that you live there, so, you're Mr. Parker County over here. So that's just something that we want to make sure that the citizens in that general area are not going to be suffering, nor the people that would move in there. They kind of get themselves into a situation, wow, our electricity's dropping, the sewage is busting. That creek that runs back through there has been notorious for having sewage issues where it has been repaired several times. I also know there's some issues with some runoff in that particular creek that results in a lot of trash accumulation and whatnot. And I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from, and I'm assuming it's probably coming from that multi-buffer or maybe even the corridor itself. Or it could have possibly been a property back at some point that was not exactly in compliance. So that's something we got to also maintain and make sure that that's not flowing into that residential area behind it.
Certainly, what I've noted here are concerns for utilities, infrastructure, to speak to that, right? So they'll have to improve existing facilities to provide and power this site, right? So that's an upgrade to the city in that particular area. Yeah, if you had sewer, again, I'm the new guy in town, right? So if you have a history of sewer issues there, well, Kennedale has a history of repairs on old lines. This will have new lines, and they'll have to install new infrastructure, new water, new sewer lines to support this development, right? So that, what that does is that improves the infrastructure at their cost. Now, I mentioned water and sewer is available off of Crestview, but this property will actually be serviced. The sewer, there is a utility easement that runs just north that goes and ties into the, off of a Hilltop, right? So that's where the engineer probably can speak, and he's here tonight, can speak more to the technical terms as far as how they'll service that. But we're looking at new infrastructure to support that. And then, I'm sorry, you mentioned one other thing about,
Well, and just bring that back up to the sewage lines here. The Hilltop and Hillside area, specifically along those creek lines, is where that sewage lines are having troubles. They are limping those along right now. And that's one of the things that has been brought up as far as the infrastructure having problems. And in this particular area, that's something that, I mean, I'm painfully aware of as personally. Yeah, the electrical side of it, and like I said, the runoff with that creek, you were talking about impeding flow and whatnot. There has been some issues with, like I said, some accumulation coming from the parkway. So I don't know if that's disturbed or anyway change. It might actually be affecting the property itself to where they're going to have an undue cost because of that particular flow rate being changed, but it has really nothing to do with the property itself. So I just wanted to bring that up.
certainly, the runoff is something that they're looking at, the drainage, that's all be done through engineering review. The trash accumulation, I've seen that along Mansfield Cardinal, right? You know, what I see here in town is Kennedale on trash day. You can go and place a bag on the curb. The requirement is actually to place it in a receptacle with a close-fitting lid. Other cities have gone to city receptacles, but here in Kennedale, we see trash bags on the curb that get torn up. Same thing on the parkway, right? Things like that. I'd like to see maybe the city go to some sort of formal receptacle to mitigate a lot of the trash that we see blowing off around town. But I certainly can empathize with seeing that as well. So, but with this particular property, I don't see the runoff, the drainage issue that, again, I'm not an engineer as well, but that's currently going to be reviewed and everything. Tonight, we're just talking about the land use, the zoning there. Following that will be a significant engineering review for the site development itself.
Okay, understood. Is this going to have a storm drain infrastructure as well, or is this going to be very much street runoff?
I'm sorry, I haven't done the calculations yet, but there will certainly be inlets in the cul-de-sac at the bottom. There may be some further up the hill. We just have to determine how much water is coming down the street. We are putting in a detention pond, and the outfall from the detention pond will be no more than what's coming out right now. And then the storm sewer design will be based on the calculations. And I have not done them on a lot-to-lot basis yet, but everything's going to drain to the street. And it's not going to drain, I mean, it's going to drain to the street and then down to the detention pond. And I know I will have inlets in the cul-de-sac. So it's just a matter of how much actual water there is in the street. I may have an inlet further up.
Okay, fair enough.
As with any development, the first hurdle is, and it involves the zoning changes, the zoning change itself, and then we move towards additional checks and balances and reviews. Any other questions?
Okay, so we had a couple people that were here today to speak in opposition to this. I know there's a 20% of property area within a certain impact or a certain area around a specific project that can essentially stop the project in total. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, correct. So a protest of the 20% of the landowners within the buffered 200-foot radius.
Right, and it's proportional to the amount of land that they are within that 200-foot buffer. Right?
I believe so. We have a, yes, I believe that's correct. But again, it's a protest of the landowners,
Okay.
property owners, yeah.
Does have there been enough protests received on this project?
I've received one written protest, and then tonight we're actually logging the comments that are received. We've heard concerns, but we haven't had anybody, maybe one or two so far, that have explicitly stated they're against it. So what's raised, and I've fielded 5 phone calls, and I've talked to people in the area, and so by explaining that the sidewalk, the infrastructure, the owner-occupied and HOA-maintained property, it seemed to ease a lot of the concerns of the people that I spoke to, because they were worried about it going south, right? But when you have owner-occupied property, HOA, they've got a vested interest in it. So that seemed to ease the concerns of at least the last 2 people that I spoke to. But as far as protests, we've received, I would count maybe 2. We can certainly look into that. So again, this following any recommendation from P&Z, it next goes to council, and at that point, we'll be able to tabulate what we've received.
Okay.
At that point.
When does that clock stop as far as the time limit for protest, just for those in the crowd?
Anytime for the public hearings. I mean, we've got the next public hearing coming for council, which will be next month. So they can write me, and we've got an Excel spreadsheet that we'll put together with all the property owners and the landowners, and then those who have protested, the landowners. We check it off to see if it hit that threshold.
And just from what I remember about it is 20% of that 200-foot buffer.
Correct.
And even though if it touches your property, it's only that proportional portion of your property that's within that gets to count towards reaching that 20% limit. So it's not a homeowner to homeowner one-to-one ratio. It's a matter of what your property size is in comparison to the 200-foot buffer.
I believe that's, if I understood correctly, I believe that's accurate. The other thing is that as far as a zoning change, or protest for a zoning change, and if it triggered a 20%, what it would require is a supermajority to overturn that. So it's not necessarily the 20%, it's just, we're dead in the water, is that if it triggers that, it just requires a higher threshold for approval on that.
Okay. So with this property being currently zoned as agricultural, I know there's some additional buildings and structures that an individual can put on an agricultural property. Can this homeowner currently add additional residential properties to this agricultural land without rezoning it as townhome?
They cannot unless they subdivide the land. So single-family residential is permitted by right in the AG property. There's already an existing structure there. So regardless of the size of it, because it's a one lot, you can only have one residential structure. If it were to be subdivided, so in this case, right, 32 townhomes, 32 individual lots, that's one structure on each lot. On an AG property, it's the same. And the minimum requirement on an AG property is usually an 80-foot lot by 125. So it's a pretty good size minimum for AG. So that would be the only other option. Right now, as a single-family residential, you could have what's called an accessory dwelling unit, or like, let's say I wanted to build a mother-in-law suite or a detached structure. ADU is what they call it, accessory dwelling unit. I believe here in Kennedale, they'd have to get special approval from the Board of Adjustment to even do that. So again, they've highlighted the need that they have family members that, hey, I got this piece of property, this is what I want to build here, and I want my family next to me. And so that's what's being translated or relayed to us.
So because it's one property, they could essentially build one massive single-family structure on this. If they were to demolish the existing structure and build one gigantic home that would be able to house everybody, that would essentially fall under this agricultural exemption still.
So the building code speaks to a minimum square footage per occupant, so it would need to be, depending on how big the family is. Currently, you can't have more than 4 unrelated people living in a home, but our zoning doesn't speak to whether you're married or in-laws, things like that, right? Is it feasible? Is it prudent? Do you want to keep your mother-in-law in the same structure, or would you like to have her, in her own dwelling unit, right? By a firewall between you two, right? So that's kind of the
No, and I get that, and I'm just trying to, there are other options if this townhome doesn't go through. And what we're proposing with the townhome is to not only improve the area, we're allowing things like that their family can be associated very closely together, having their own homes, their own single-family homes. I know it's kind of the perception of it within Kennedale, even though definitionally, townhome is still considered a townhome, or is considered a single-family dwelling. Townhomes, the perception of them within what it seems these survey results are saying is that it's still kind of perceived as a multifamily home. But I get definitionally it is single family. I like that it can be an improvement to the property to provide an additional setback, that reduction in density as we move away from the heavier areas of traffic, from moving away from Kennedale Parkway. Because there is that commercial up there. I would like to see that, and I would like to hope that the city is going to continue to build sidewalks or whatnot through that area. And if we are renovating the fire department, and if that's already kind of in the plan, and that property, since it butts up right next to it, can kind of transition into that. There's also a small pocket park right next to the fire department.
There is. It's not an official park. That's actually platted as a road. And so I think it'd probably be best to keep it in its current state. But, when they platted that neighborhood, that was a stub out into the future, right? So this property, if this property were to develop, there's a could it continue into this neighborhood? They've got a cul-de-sac kind of just going through it, and front entry is what they're proposing. So we've got some other avenues or hurdles to jump through with that. But when you talk about buffer, right now our requirement is that you have to have rear entry. And so you'd have to have a loop around the entire thing. So people's existing backyards, you just got a driveway back it versus backyard to backyard, on a townhome. So that's sort of that buffer, and you keep all the noise kind of concentrated within the center of the property, so.
Wait, so you're saying these are rear entry?
No, these are front entry.
Okay.
That's what's on the site plan. Again, to the zoning changes just specific to the land use, there'll need to be some variances and things that we're looking at that we'll have to follow in order to make this whole vision come to pass. Again, this is the first step in that long process.
And why was a planned development not considered for this?
Doesn't have the minimum acreage, need a minimum 5. They would have probably preferred a PD, but our current zoning requires a minimum 5 acres, and they are under that, 4.27.
Gotcha.
So if we amend that to 4, acres at some point in the future, this could have been a planned development as well. Yeah, that answers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, at this time, we'll go ahead and open up the floor for discussions. It's 6:48. Anybody like to come on up and discuss anything you've heard? Have any comments or rebuffer? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Nathan, thank you so much. So there's still the issue of the street. So the walkability was discussed, but there's still the issue of the street. That's still a problem. And even though the suggestion was that the limited amount of traffic, so with 32 units, you're looking at at a minimum 64 additional cars. With there already being that small of a street, I would say that's not insignificant. And then one of the things that you brought up is the runoff. So I live right next to the creek, and the creek is already an issue, especially with the 3-story apartment. They have a detention pond, and so far it's held up. But every time it rains really hard, I just hold my breath and don't walk out there because, I do hope that it holds up. So far it has, but with now an additional structure there on the backside of that feeding into that creek, we already have major erosion issues, as everyone knows, that haven't been addressed. So I'm just concerned. I just want us to think really carefully because we've already made some decisions that we can't undo. I just want us to think very, very carefully about this as we make these decisions.
Any further discussion at this time? I will go ahead and close discussion at 6:50-ish. Any further comments up here?
It's a small development in size and scope. It's an area of town that does need to have some investment into it. I understand that road is very small. I mean, I personally use that road pretty much every single day when I drop off my son at Delaney Elementary. I do see the deterioration in it, and maybe something like this will spur the city along to, because even with the traffic that's coming from the school, to throw in an additional, 30 some odd trips per day, if every single car left that facility at the exact same time or in the morning, if every single one of those housings had one trip, which is normally not how it's calculated for trips, for traffic studies, having an additional 32 cars on that road, it doesn't back up at the light or anything like that. So I think the capacity on the road could handle whatever traffic is going to be derived from this. I'm sure there will be a future traffic study that's going to be done. If there's not one planned, I would think that it would be something that would be important to include within future iterations of this, just so that it's out there that even though it is 32 units, traffic study says, there's this many trips in the morning, this many trips in the evening anticipated. I like the concept that it is the individuals that are here bought this land, they live here, they want to stay here, they want to invest in here. And it seems like they've exhausted all their other options between working closely with Nathan and the planning department. And this is kind of the best scenario for this plot of land, besides tearing it down and building just one massive family structure. It increases, it kind of balances two things. I mean, it allows the family to remain together, allows the family to remain close, also raises an additional tax base. Maybe as part of this, maybe the city looks into having a tax incremental reinvestment zone to where the taxes raised from these developments are actually going to go to improve that road. So there's options here that can address we can plan to address some of those traffic issues if they do so arise. But I think it's well thought out. I think it's probably the best scenario for this piece of land at this moment in time. That's what I got.
Cody?
I'm not comfortable with the road being so skiddy, even with the sidewalk, in case there's a car swerves or something happens, kids are gonna be walking on that sidewalk, even at a short distance. It's just a scary road to go down. I remember doing it, taking my kid over there for football practice, years ago. It was horrible then. I just think the infrastructure needs to be built up more before we start adding a lot more cars.
Well, I'm going to also throw out back to the staff. As you've heard, we're looking at safety. We're looking at infrastructure, ongoing operational cost of this area as well for the city if this goes through. So that's something I definitely want to make sure that the council has those notes.
Certainly, there are a number of fees that will be assessed, right? Roadway impact fees that goes directly to improving roadway infrastructure, water sewer impact fees, right, that we collect, parkland dedication, these are residential units we collect. We'll collect a fee off of each one of these particular lots. That goes straight into our parks department. But certainly, there is a mechanism in place to help offset some improvements to road infrastructure here in Kennedale when development comes into town. So we already have that set up in place, and we're certainly looking at that. Again, part of the further engineering review is to look at all these items. Tonight, we're just talking about land use, compatibility, things of that nature. So with that, happy to answer any more questions. If not, welcome a motion on the matter. Thank you.
And at this moment in time, we're just approving the rezoning, right? We're not approving the final
Correct.
determination for total number of units. All of that can still be up for discussion.
Well, they're under the threshold for what they could do there on a rezone to townhome. So they've actually come in less dense than what is permitted. So they've heard council loud and clear. Hey, they want small scale density, and this is what this is. We're talking 8 buildings, small buildings, and they've shown, I think, some good effort in that as well. So.
All right, with that being said, we're going to distress to the city council that these impacts are definitely reviewed, looked at, scrutinized, just for the betterment for everybody as far as the community is concerned. Not only those that own the land that want to definitely do something with it that's worthwhile to their family. We want to make sure they get a fair shake just as well as the person down the street. So it's not. It's nothing against it per se, but it's kind of let's make sure we dot our I's, cross our T's, and make sure that the city council is well aware of these things have been brought up. But as you've reiterated a few times, that yeah, definitely this is about approving a zoning based on the criteria, not necessarily the actual final touches of what occurs on this land. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and take a motion for approval.
Motion we approve.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous. Thank you very much for those that came in and spoke on this, and thank you, staff, for that on that particular case. All right, public hearing item B, P&Z case 24-02, to conduct public hearing and consider proposed zoning change request from PD Plan Development District Moderno Development to PD Plan Development District Aspar LLC Development for approximately 6 acres at 3775 Kennedale New Hope Road, Robert C. Richley Survey, abstract number 1327, tract 2K and 2L at 3771 Kennedale, New Hope Road, Robert C. Kinley Survey, abstract 1359, tract 1D and 1E, City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and allow for any kind of initial conversation or comments at this on this particular case? Any open forum discussion at all? All right, staff?
Okay, so what we have to you with the, this particular item is a zoning change from a planned development to a planned development. That's the gist of it, right? So what we have here, we've got two pieces of land, 3775 New Hope, 3771 New Hope. They are contiguous, so they are side by side off of New Hope Road. It's about 5.97 acres. The lot's about 225 feet in the front, and it reduces in size to about 190 feet towards the rear. So it's sort of like a odd-shaped rectangle, if you would. So the current zoning is a planned development for a project that was referred to as Moderno, and what it was a 50-unit small cottage development. And it had a kind of a loop around it with a mews in between, like a green space. And then off of these were lots that were 35 feet by 65 feet. So in your mind's eye, 35 feet by 65 feet. And there was 50 of these to support cottages. So the average home, I believe, was 1,000 square feet, something around that nature, maybe a little up or down. The minimum square footage, though, on those lots was 2,275 square feet. So our applicant tonight for this particular item purchased it in 2021, and he wants to build single-family at this location. And so we've talked with him, we've worked with him and his design team to discuss what that planned development would look like, and he wants to build again, a single-family development here. I believe I think we're looking at about 32, 34 single-family lots, and they vary in size. So they start, on the street frontage portion of it. Those lots are wider. They are 60-plus feet. And they got about a handful of those, 4 to 6 of those 60-foot lots there as you come into the property. And then it would taper down to 55-foot lots. Then as the property gets narrower towards the east, then you have your traditional 50-foot lot. And so you've provided with the concept plan, a site plan that kind of shows that particular layout. So that's the current status. That's what the current request is here at this location. I want to describe kind of what we have in that general area and surrounding properties. So just to the north, south, and the west, we have R2 residential district zone property, and these are single-family, large-sized lots there. Towards the east, we have the industrial zone property and a gas well that's the Harrison Jet compound, that whole property there, so they're adjacent to that. The land use here in this area is either residential or it's undeveloped. Further west, when you get outside that initial New Hope Road area, then you have further west, you have the old drag strip, right? The old drag strip that's there. And we know that the city currently has a development agreement on the old drag strip for some residential here. So in this general area, we have existing residential, undeveloped land, future more residential coming in, and then as you go to the east, you kind of get into the Harrison Jet, Hudson Village Creek area where we have some more of our heavier industrial area. So I want to get into land use compatibility. There's not much more I can say on that. It's compatible. So what we have there existing is cottage development, residential. This new one, it's not changing that. It's just changing essentially the lot sizes. And if we were to amend that plan development, we were kind of discussing what the process is, right? If we have a plan development here that sets a minimum lot of 35 feet, but they're exceeding that, do they need to do a zoning change? And so we conferred with legal, and they said, if you're amending an existing planned development, it needs to be treated just like a zoning change. So that's what we're here tonight for this particular item, is that it's just a planned development to a planned development. So we looked in our comprehensive plan, future land use plan, everything here in this area that's consistent with the future land use plan, consistent with our comp plan, as was the last project that was here. This area is slated to turn into a neighborhood corridor, neighborhoods like we described earlier, neighborhood village, not in the zoning sense, but as the future land use comprehensive plan describes that. So when you get into these neighborhood corridors, what kind of developments are compatible? Well, you got obviously residential offerings, right? Small scale, multifamily even, would be okay according to the plan. You get restaurants, retail. So if you think about Little School Road, right, as you get closer up, you got some commercial offerings. You just got single family. It's real similar here off of New Hope Road. The only thing is that New Hope Road is the undeveloped kind of part of town. Okay, so the proposed rezoning is consistent with our comprehensive plan. Tonight, you're going to hear me go and highlight the community survey. This is fresh data, fresh insight for the community. Again, that particular survey requested, or they showed a desire for a variety of single-family housing options. The top 3 results here in town, if you look at figure C, the top 3 are all having to do with single family. So Kennedale has spoken. We like single family. We'd like to see a mix of them. We'd like to see more entry level single family, mid-size, and some custom homes. Well, what does entry and mid-level look like, right? Entry level probably isn't that wide lot that we see across the street, right? Entry level is a smaller lot. And this particular development provides all 3. It provides that entry-level, smaller 50-foot lot. It's got that mid-sized lot at 55, and then it's got some 60-foot-plus lots in there as well. And so with this particular applicant, he's a developer. He builds, and he builds his own home. So this would be considered 100% custom home here. So he submitted some sample elevations for your review. Again, these are kind of concepts, but that's kind of what he's looking at on building there. You'll see a lot of them are 2-story, some good size homes there. And then we've also submitted you a revised PD, plan development language, that discusses the varying lot widths, yard setbacks. I want to make one note specifically. So in the concept plan, you will see that it says 60+ feet. And then it says by 89 feet. They're like, well, I'm used to seeing 100 feet deep. What this is not accounting for is that 10, 11 feet of the parkway that you'll have in front of the home. So this, remember I described a kind of odd-shaped rectangular, and they've got a street going through it. And we've actually asked them to stub out north and south for any future development. Kind of similar to what we see there on Hilltop, right? Stub out the future development. Well, that's a 50-foot right-of-way on that. So you got a 30-foot street curb to curb, which is a lot wider than some of our neighborhoods that we have existing. And then the other 10 and 10 on each side that isn't accounted for on the lot is provided there. So in theory, when you see a 60 by 89 or 60 by 90, just know in your mind's eye that other 10 feet is that front parkway where you'll see a curb, you'll see the sidewalk, and you'll see a street tree of some sort there. So again, the zoning change is consistent and compatible with our land use of our comp plan, our future land use plan, and it's consistent with our community survey. So with that, we do recommend approval for this item.
The original development on this, was this taken into account before the moratorium for building, or was that, as far as the 120-day, was a 180-day stoppage?
Well, the moratorium was specific to multifamily.
Okay, so it's just
townhome,
multifamily. I wasn't, remember that one. Okay, so it's.
And I think it was R4 development. But again, the intent of that was to say, hey, we need to stop, we need a timeout. We've got to get our infrastructure in order, and we've done that. So the council's got a plan in place now. They've approved some bonds for infrastructure. So that needed time out, resulted in great benefits for the community, because now we've got a handle on, we have a plan on what we're going to do to improve our infrastructure.
So we can kind of chart that out on a timeline.
That's expired.
Okay.
It wasn't even renewed. It was to give the city time to come up with that plan.
Anything for staff?
So the lot size widths, I know we had, a couple months ago, we had a discussion over lot size, minimum lot size on the front. Can you just kind of go over that and how that played into, because I think we increased some of them, but was it just in the R3 sections?
Yes, so you're referring to last spring when we updated the UDC.
I believe so.
The R4 was changed from a minimum 50-foot lot to a minimum 70-foot lot here in Kennedale. That's what we essentially told the development community. This is the minimum lot that we'll accept for an R4 development. But what happens is that if you've got the acreage, what I highlighted to P&Z and Ant Council is that when you set the minimum lot at 70, you can expect more requests for planned development, because they want varying, they don't want that cookie cutter type of development, right? They want to be able to offer a variety of housing options and products to their market base. And so a planned development allows council to consider, allows P&Z to consider other types of development that would be outside the four walls of an R4. So this is a planned development. It takes into account those concerns. And speaking with the applicant and the developer, I told them right off the get, hey, this is the history with the 50-foot lot here in town. But I understand that this lot has some tight quarters at the rear. But what can you do? Can you increase those lot widths, and where can we meet in the middle? And so 50s and 60s and in between is where we landed. And again, they've have some lots that are 60 plus, which is improved. And those wider lots on the planned development language, you'll actually see a wider side yard setback. So other parts of town that we have, where we have a 50-foot lot, you may have a minimum 5-foot setback. Depending on the area, it may be a 2 and a 3-foot setback, depending on which side of the lot you're on. So we have some neighborhood villages in town that have, 5 feet between them, right? We've seen these. We've had other communities that have a 5-yard side setback, which is standard. It's standard throughout North Texas. But what that nets you is the possibility of only having 10 feet between the homes, right? So when we took that into account with this development, we asked for 7.5 on the wider lots where they have the extra elbow room, right? So that gives you 15 and 15 on each side. So we're going to have a little bit more elbow room as you come into the property with the wider lots. But as you get where the lot narrows, you're going to get that traditional 5-yard setback. The challenge with the 50-foot lot, and if I got 50 feet to work with, right? And I have a 10-foot side yard setback on a 50-foot lot. That means the building or the home is only 30 feet wide, right? So it doesn't work with a lot of architects as far as when they're talking about space planning, where you put the restroom, where you put the living space. You could probably squeeze in some bedrooms, right? But it's like the old saying, right? You can have a home with nothing but bedrooms and you can sleep there, but you can't live there, right? So architects have to take into account how that functions, right? So on a 50-foot lot with the 5-yard setback it allows for more livable space within the actual structure. But here we found a compromise that on the 50-foot lots, okay, that's normal on a 5-yard setback, but if council and P&Z will consider and approve wider lots, like their preference, they've highlighted their preference to be, can you give us a little bit more elbow room in the community so it doesn't have the appearance of everybody crammed together? And I think we've accomplished that with this planned development, certainly more than what's existing there today, because today you have a 35-foot lot by 65 and a dwelling that takes up most of that space on that lot.
And so how many units are in this revision of the PD?
I don't, let me get that up. I believe it was 34 lots. 36 lots.
36 lots?
36 lots. And actually, as you get to the rear where they have open space and the detention pond that's proposed, that'll be the area for it. Those last two lots are actually the wider lots. They're kind of odd shaped, so you're going to see more elbow room back there. So it's a good mix, we believe.
And there's a detention pond on site on the plan for stormwater.
They'll need to be, correct. Just like before, the land use, the zoning is the first hurdle. Following this, then they know that they were successful, perhaps successful in the zoning change, and they can proceed to invest in this actual civil drawings for that. But the site detention is an open green space is proposed in the rear at the back of the property, where there's currently being used as a dumping ground.
Okay. The stub outs, is there actually a future road that's designed to go through there, or what is?
No, north and south, you have undeveloped land, but it's just a good planning practice to think of the future, think what could be, right? And so what you don't want to see is going down New Hope Road, a bunch of cul-de-sacs. The fire department, they'd have my head, really. And it actually improves fire access, emergency access when you have a grid structure. And it improves traffic too, where people can kind of maneuver around a community without being funneled one particular direction. So those stub outs is for future planning. And again, those were areas that initially were a lot. So they've actually reduced where they could have put a home there to stub out for future development. I'll tell you, working with this applicant and developer, if I mentioned something, he said, okay. I've never had it that simple, and it's been wonderful.
I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, in that case, we'll just go and open it up for discussion 717. Anybody want to speak on this case? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. First of all, can I get you to state your name and your address?
Morris, Debbie Morris, 607 South New Hope Road, Kennedale. My concern is I'm on aerobic septic right now, so I don't know if there's any plans for infrastructure improvement where I could get on city sewage. And then also traffic. I mean, even though New Hope Road is a lot wider than Crestview, it's one lane each way, and it can get bogged down. That's all.
Ma'am, did you fill out a request to speak sheet?
I did not.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
Thank
Nathan?
Any?
Nathan? Do you know what's the average home size that they're proposing to build here?
The minimum home size on the plan development sets it at, I believe it's on that, let's see what we got. Would you like to speak to that, sir?
Good evening, sir. My name is Mohammed Rahman. I'm the owner of Apsar LLC. My plan to build this subdivision, and my plan to minimum 2,000 to 3,000 in between size, home. So this is very much, I mean, you have any question, you can ask me. I'm ready to answer your question. And
I don't think there was any further on our end here.
because this land used to be approved 3 years ago, 52 lot, and it was too narrow, and home size was 1,000 to 1,300 square feet. So honestly, I don't like it. So I changed my mind. I just submit the new plan to the gentleman, and he gave me some idea also. So we both together, and that's why I submit this thing. It's gonna be, looks good, and it's gonna be, more shiny, this neighborhood, and they can bring the more friends, this neighborhood, It's gonna be nice, and it's gonna be really nice. A neighborhood, everybody should like it, I hope.
Is there's not a park or green space?
No, yeah, we do, yeah.
There is a park on there?
Yes, sir, the very back.
In the back where the
Yes, sir.
detention
Yeah,
pond's
yeah,
at?
Yeah, we have enough land, no problem. We're gonna put the pond also, the very back.
Is there a plan for this to be a septic base, or is this going to be put onto the actual, it is? Yeah, I don't,
Oh, it's funny.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, as with the benefits of new development is that the developer will extend existing infrastructure to and through the property. That is the term that Public Works departments use all the time. You got to bring it to you and through you so that it stops at the end of your limit. So when the next person comes to build it, they continue that on. So, but no, we haven't even discussed septics at all. So we're working with the conception that the infrastructure will be extended in there.
okay, I just wanted to get maybe a better feel for the question we had earlier.
Thank you, sir.
If there's any further discussion? All right, we'll close up the open session at 7:21. Any further discussion on the board?
Here.
You good? All right. Well, then I'll take a motion for approval.
Motion we approve.
Second?
I'll second that.
Well, I hope so. All in favor? Unanimous, man. All right, final case, number C here. P and Z case 24-03 to conduct a public hearing to consider proposed zoning changes to request R3 residential district to TH Townhome District for Block 8, lots 10 and 11, and the Oak Crest addition located at 6817 Oak Crest Drive West and 6821 Oak Crest Drive, City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas. Quick open for comments at this time.
Hello, my name is Federico Canoura with F-City Signs. I live in 390 East Oakenwall, apartment 134, Dallas, Texas 75203. I'm the designer of the site plan and the duplex concept that we are providing you on this development, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm here if you guys have any questions in regards to, or concerns in regards to the design, that I'm available to answer them.
Thank you, sir. We'll let you know.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anything further? All right, staff.
Okay, so the subject property consists of two lots, 6821, 6817 Oak Crest Drive West. Together, they combine about an acre. So both lots, they have frontage off of Oak Crest Drive. Both lots are currently zoned R3. And so the applicant's requesting a zoning change to townhome district. So this applicant is proposing to build two detached family dwellings, two detached two-family dwellings on each lot with the shared access between the lots. So if in your mind's eye, if you'll think about two lots, and they've provided a concept plan, the shared access, instead of two driveways on each side, it would be a single driveway down the middle. That's what they're proposing. The shared access, again, will be between lots 6821 and 6817. The two-family dwellings, right, duplexes, two-family dwellings, duplexes, those are permitted within the townhome district. But they are not permitted within the R3 district. So one of the things we looked at with the applicant is this is what you want to build, which zoning classification is appropriate for that. And we've decided that the townhome district, because the way these are designed in appearance and potential for the future, right, that the townhome district would be the most appropriate district in this area, given what we have existing in the neighborhood. City Council, again, last spring set the spatial requirements for townhomes with the maximum density of 8 units dwelling per acre. So if we've got an acre, the most amount of dwelling units that we can have within an acre is 8 units. Here, they are proposing 4 units on each lot. However, it's not a row of 4, it's separated 2 and 2. So I'm doing my best to kind of describe that. This is consistent with our zoning requirements. So furthermore, when we look at what the minimum lot square footage is, the minimum lot area, the widths of the lots for a townhome district, these existing lots exceed what the minimum requirements are. So we got a little bit more room, more elbow room here in the area. Okay. So a concept plan, again, has been provided. Sample elevations have been provided for your review. Let me just describe what we have in that general area. So they're surrounded by R3 zone property to the north, to the east, and to the west. Due west, we have a property that is owned by the Kennedale, the Kennedale Economic Development, EDC, and that particular lot is zoned neighborhood village, right? And I think we've discussed that before. That's a higher density, it allows for just a mix of things, and that's right across the street, right? So the neighborhood district, again, allows for higher density residential, and so that's what we have existing there. A few lots north, if you go a little further north, right now you have 2 properties that have been rezoned to townhome district as well, 6808 and 6800, which actually is under construction. So they've got not them, but another group is doing a townhome offering there. It's all on one lot, but it's essentially 5 townhomes that are attached, that project is currently underway. So in the area, we have existing neighborhood village, we have existing townhomes, and again, we have residential as well. As you go further south around the bend on Oak Crest Road, then you have heavy commercial truck parking. We have the auto salvage yards that everyone in town is familiar with. So these lots are, again, further south. So within this general area, that's kind of what we've got. We looked at land use compatibility. I'll say that the Oak Crest addition, that area has been in transition for years, right? If you recall, the Oak Crest, we used to have bars there, SOBs. Now we have restaurants, that's where the QT is. We currently have some hotel development underway there. And so we do have higher density that's currently being constructed in that Oak Crest area, right? So again, as there's already existing townhome zone property in that Oak Crest addition, we felt that the most appropriate zoning to go to would be, again, the townhome district, which again allows for single family, 2-family, and townhomes as well. So the proposed land use, again, is compatible with what we got going on in that area already as far as surrounding uses. And I want to move into the future land use plan. So if you look in Figure A, everything basically north of the creek off of Kennedale Parkway, everything north to I-20, east and west, the future land use plan designates that as an employment center. And again, that is currently being updated, but that's what we've got on the books right now. So sample types of development that occur with this employment district is you got multi-tenant offices, retail, restaurants, hotel, and today it actually says multifamily, right? So that's what the city envisions in that neck of the woods. Again, you got highway frontage that's there, very busy corridor. What would be compatible, what would be appropriate there? If multifamily is appropriate in Kennedale, this area I would submit to you would be one of those areas where it would be appropriate. I don't want to consider this multifamily because it's not, it's two-family. So it'll be reviewed by the IRC, not the IBC, right? So, so we're looking at that as well. But it is compatible with the surrounding uses, and the requested rezone is consistent with our future land use plan as well. So given those statements, I'll say that we've recommended approval, that the request for the zoning change to townhome is, again, consistent and compatible. So happy to answer any questions you may have on the matter.
Where's the nearest septic tie into that, or shall I say, excuse me, sewage tie-in?
That's a good point. So just north, what this project will entail is they'll have to connect to the manhole, which is further north at the bend, right around the 6800 block. They're further south, so we don't have a sewer line that goes further south. So at their cost, their development, they're going to have to extend, and they got to go uphill, right? And we know what doesn't roll uphill, right? So they're investing significant resources to get that going where it needs to go. And so in support of this, again, they'll be improving city infrastructure as well.
That was my only real question.
So does a replat need to happen to make these two lots a single unit before we can start moving forward with the rezoning on it?
No, the replat will follow. You couldn't replat before because the replat would have to be consistent with whatever the zoning is. So they could only replat at a R3 district right now. So that's where the rezone would come first, and then the replat would be needed following that.
Okay. Because we are splitting lot, or we're
Correct.
We're
Correct.
conjoining a lot, so we're going to
Yeah.
have to have a replat.
And I believe these are already platted lots. Yeah, platted lots. So that would be a replat, and that would be a public hearing. However, as long as the replat or the lots are consistent with the zoning district, these days it's more of just a ministerial act. So a replat will come back before P&Z and then go to council.
So this is kind of it's a weird district within Kennedale, because we've started doing some of this spot zoning in this area around this idea that there's this future train stop that's coming in. It's marked on the map and whatnot, and that's kind of why some of these other actions, the neighborhood village, the other townhome, have been considered and approved. Do we know what the status of that future stop would be?
Absolutely. I'll take exception, though, with the spot zoning, because we wouldn't be able to do that. Make that clear on the record. But the great news, we've got some, if you heard from the EDC, the meeting that just recently occurred, is that the city was actually successful in obtaining some property there in the Oakrest area, right off the service road. There's 4 lots that were for sale. They've accepted the city's offer, and that is going to serve as that future transit-oriented development. So we've at least secured a spot to support that in a future endeavor. And so now we've got some room there. But what transit-oriented development typically includes is retail, restaurant, higher density housing, things like that, where you can move in, you get maybe a young couple moving in, professional, or someone looking to downsize and hop on a train and go into downtown Fort Worth and, go to work. So that's kind of the overall, that's been the discussion that I've heard here in Kennedale.
So are we, with the redesign of our comp plan, are we kind of, has there been any discussions about making this kind of a special district to really focus in on that area?
Yeah, absolutely. Our last steering committee that we discussed just that as a sort of like the Oakcrest Edition overlay that'll allow for just a variety of things, right? The transit-oriented development discussion with the future rail that we're hearing will go from downtown Fort Worth into Mansfield, right? We want to take part in that, right? Get a stop here in Kennedale. And it's great news to hear that we've that part of the puzzle, we've made some pretty good headway on. So that discussion's ongoing, but that's what we foresee out there as well.
That's all my questions.
All right, it's 7:35. We'll go ahead and open it up for discussion. Open floor. Thank you, Nathan. Okay. Yeah, the rationale behind the question on that is simply because our infrastructure is we are,
That's gonna cost them.
we depend a lot on the city of Fort Worth and the city of Arlington for these structures, and it's, we're pushing that out onto them, so that's something we have to consider as well, not only to upgrade our infrastructure, but make sure theirs can maintain as well. So we have a partnership going with them. So that was the concern on that, and then basically knowing the lay of that land up there, of course, as he mentioned, it rolls uphill, so.
There we go. I was like, so my name is Matthew Sanchez. I'm one of the owners of MK3 Group. And the sewer actually, or the land goes up and the sewer's uphill. So we already looked into doing sewer pumps and handling the sewer system. It is a substantial investment, but with this project, the way it lays out, it works out. And we also do have the financial backing of 2 different banks that are willing to take this on. We had already got accepted to do 2 houses there that we were going to do, and we had came and tried to do in the past, about 2 years ago, a different development, but it was passed by planning and zoning and then turned down by P&Z because of density. Now the density has been reduced, and the city actually came to us asking us if we wanted to review that and actually go back to P&Z and city council. We said absolutely, and that was about 2 years ago. So we've been holding on to this land for some time, and then when the city came back to us right before we broke ground and got the permits, we went ahead and said, hey, let's look at a new project, let's redo all new plans, and let's look at, hey, is this feasible for us as a company? And we feel like it fits the area. The other developer that is building the other 2 is actually one of my good friends, and he was grandfathered into something that was a little bit more dense, and we're doing a little bit something less dense. So, any questions for me?
Who maintains those pumps if those are actually going to be installed?
That is us.
Okay,
So, and if we sell them, then that would pass on to the homeowners.
okay,
that
so
we
it'll be
could
on
put-
property.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that's all I have.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Any further? Okay, then we'll wrap up the closed session. We'll close session now at 7:38. Any further discussion on the board? Everybody happy? All right. Then I'll take a motion to approve or recommend.
I motion we approve.
I will second that.
All right, all in favor? Easy crowd tonight.
Easy crowd.
All right. Well, with that being said,
Motion we adjourn?
I am now, definitely going to motion for an adjournment. It was a
Motion we
busy
adjourn?
session.
I'll second that.
All right. Adjourned at 7:39.
There's Daryl. I didn't see him over there. Oh, freaking allergies.
I hear you.
Killing me.
Yeah.
Okay, you gonna keep yours?
Yeah, we keep them.
Okay, you gonna keep yours?
This is an interesting. Well, learned a lot tonight. Learned a whole lot. Oh, I'll take that. Hell of it.